Hello everyone, welcome to the show The Focus Line. In today's Focus Lines, we are going to discuss many important articles from the men's perspective, and the article belongs to GS2 and GS3. So today I have brought these articles which are talking about separation of power. First article is about the separation of power. So in this article is very relevant from the perspective of GS2 in the polity section, where there is syllabus in GS2 that is called separation of power. So from that perspective, this article is very important. So the context of this article set, you all are aware. I have discussed previously also. There is one case that going on in Supreme Court called the context goes in April, when in April Supreme Court in Tamil Nadu government versus Tamil Nadu governor. In this particular case, we have given 3 months ka time limit for the governor as well as the president to give assent on bills. So, and this development followed by in May 2025, the Honorable President of India, under Article 143, that ask advice of the Supreme Court that whether the such kind of time limitation that Supreme Court gives for the governor or president, so they wants to clarify this one. So this currently case is going on because of the presidential reference to the Supreme Court. So this is development behind this particular aspect. So what is currently happened? So yesterday, the Chief Justice of India, that is B.R. Gavi, so he said the Constitution bench that led by the Chief Justice of India, B.R. Gavi, asked whether the court should remain idle if one wing of democracy fails to discharge its constitutional duties. Okay, so in this case, there is the context they have given that about the separation of power. So when it comes to the background of separation of power, it goes in the Renaissance period in Europe. So during the Renaissance period, there was one famous political thinker called Montesquieu. So this person, in his Spirit of Law, he has propounded this particular aspect that is called separation of power. And this separation of power, he has given to avoid tyranny, and he suggests to avoid tyranny, power should be divided among the different aspect. So he suggests there should be division of the power between executive, judiciary and legislature. So the current development, if you see what is there, the background, the executive who are to belongs to government, and they are to responsible for the implementation. The judiciary, which is responsible for the check constitutionality of the particular legislation. So it has duty to uphold the constitution. And the legislature, which is the one of crucial among the structure among the separation of power, which is responsible for the framing of legislation. So this is about the separation of, how the separation of power is done. And this separation of power, it's called as strict separation of power. So, and this strict separation of power, particularly currently prevalent in USA. But when it comes to the Indian context, the separation of power is different. So how it is different? If you see the current constitutional development or the judicial pronouncement, that the Indian separation of power, it is all about the check and balance. So even the constitutional, there are the certain constitutional article, that Article 13, Article 32 and Article 226. So these article explicitly gives the checks and balance. Okay, and it talks about the separation of power. It gives the power to judiciary to check constitutionality of the legislation. So how it is checks and balance, because if you see the three organs of government, that is executive, judiciary and legislature. So what will do, legislature is responsible to frame the legislations or the laws, and these legislation or the laws, the constitutionality of these laws checked by the judiciary. So there is a check given by the judiciary on the legislation, and also there are the executive bylaws, the regulation, rules, regulation that pronounced by the executive. That also the constitutionality of these legislation checked by the judiciary. So judiciary is central to this separation of power or check or balance. Also, if you see this legislation, legislature, they hold the executive accountable, so through the various parliamentary instrument available. So the overall idea of Indian separation of power is the check and balance. Also there is second aspect when it comes to Indian separation of power. It is about the overlap and the cooperation. Okay, how overlap and cooperation? Because if you see the executive in India, the people that sitting in government, the minister, prime minister, they are the part of legislature. Okay, so there is condition that if you want to become minister, prime minister, or if you want to hold any office in the government, okay, particularly the political office, they need to be part of the legislature. They either should come from the Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha. So there is the overlap when it comes to the and cooperation, because if you see when it comes to legislation many times it gives the skeleton and the executive makes the rules. Okay, the digital data protection bill is there. It is one example where judiciary has given the legislation have given the skeleton, and the judiciaries or the executive, they are responsible to frame the law, and judiciary is there to check the constitutionality. So there is the cooperation. Also there is the restraint intervention by the judiciary, because judiciary has obligation to check the laws or bylaws, the regulation, whatever there are. So this when they challenge the constitution. So the challenge to the laws or the regulation is not on the whims of the judiciary. Only there is the rise question of the constitutionality of particular provision or a particular law, then only judiciary can intervene. So there is a clear check and balance, and there is the clear chance to work the government in the organs of government independently. So this is about the Indian context of separation of power. Again, there is the certain challenges and risk involved here. So first is about the judicial overreach and judicial restraint. Okay, so when it comes to the judicial overreach, you all are aware about in 2 years back the Supreme Court came with the direction it given to the governments. Okay, so it is about the expanding the exclusive economic zone, and also it invited large scale protests in the Kerala. So it is the one example of judicial overreach. They don't have the expertise to bring such laws, but they brought it. So what is the actual what happened here? That is the judicial overreach. So there is second is judicial restraint. So when it comes to the judiciary, they have responsibility to balance between this one, judicial overreach and judicial restraint. Okay, they need to balance it. Judicial restraint, because the particular case where the Supreme Court is exploring the ways, okay, whether they have the power to direct the executives, be it prime minister, governor, to give time limit to assent on the bill. So such power they have or not. So this is the one example of the judicial restraint. Okay, second is about the separation of boundaries are blurred, because just we have discussed about the cooperation. There is the cooperation and overlap when it comes to the three organs of government. So the separation of the boundaries are the blurred here. Also there is a problem of legitimacy and democratic mandate, because if you see the legislature, which is the elected by the people, and the executive, okay, so will be sitting in government. They will be people coming from this legislature. So they are indirectly, they are also direct elected. Okay, so these two organs are elected, they have the people's mandate. But when it comes to the judiciary, the members of judiciary, the judges, they are unelected. So in other way, or in the strong way, if you want to tell, then In indirect way, the court is undemocratic because the members of the courts are not unelected. Okay, so this aspect is there. So whose say will prevail, whether the legislature or executive or the judiciary? Okay, so the executive and the legislature, people in sitting in legislature, they enjoy the whim, the mandate of the people, but judiciary, when it comes to judiciary, they don't. So this is the one more aspect it involves here. Second is about the risk of backlogs and the judicial capacity restraint constraint, because the judiciary, if they inviting, they're taking the more or more case on suo motu basis. So ultimately what will happen, it will increase the risk of backlogs and judicially capacity constraint. Okay, so currently you are seeing there is a huge vacancy in judiciary, all the three tiers, be it the top Supreme Court, the intermediate, that is High Court, or the subordinate courts. There is a huge vacancies, and if the more or more such cases are coming, then ultimately it will increase the risk of backlog, and it will overcome the judicial capacity to take the quick decision. So this is about the separation of power. But we need to understand one thing, that separation of power is not about the isolation, it is about the responsibility. So the all three organs of government, they need to ensure that if one of the organs fails, then they need to ensure the proper functioning of government, but within the prescribed limit. Okay, so this is all about the separation of power. Now we'll move toward the next article. It is about the vulture, that is comes in the, it might come in GS2 because it is related to health, or it comes in GS3 because it is related to environment and ecology. So there are these two aspect are very two subjects important when we are going to discuss this particular article. It's about the can vulture help prevent the pandemics. Okay, so it is the article brief idea about this article, that it talks about the vultures nature sanitation service. So the vultures, they provide the nature sanitation services. So it talks about, because if you see the dead animals carcass. So what will happen if this carcass is, so ultimately what will happen, it is not degraded. Okay, so ultimately it leads to the rotting, and this rotting will go for the, it will become the breeding ground for the pathogens. And also this rotting, the elements or the organs that will the contaminate water. How it will contaminate? Through the leaching or the running off. So these two aspects, also this will create the case where the dogs and rats, they will feed on them. So there are the three possibilities are, and when it contaminated water is there, then it is directly related to waterborne diseases. Also when it comes to pathogen, it is breeding ground for the many diseases. Also these dogs and the rat, they will act as a vector for the zoonotic diseases. Okay, so this way, and this going to directly impact the humans. So this is the one brief idea, the brief how the vultures provide sanitation service to the humans. Okay, so this is the idea. But if the vultures are present in this system, okay, here this, what is the rotting is happening here, the vultures, they will feed on this carcass. Okay, and they will degrade. So whatever the next cycle is there, this will be broken. So indirectly there are the health benefit related to vulture service. So from that perspective, this article is talking about, because in the last few years, in last 10-20 years, what has happened, there is 40 million vultures, they have lost their life because of the one issue, that is the diplo Diplonic, the particular the anti-inflammatory the drug is there. Because of that, the 40 million vulture has lost their life, and this is because of the this particular drug it used to treat the cattles, and that cattles when they die, this vulture feeds on their carcasses, and this causes the liver failure. Ultimately, this vulture dies. Okay, so nearly 40 million vultures died because of this reason, and the ecological role, the crucial ecological role they were performing in ecosystem, that is also got threatened. So this article is talking about this particular aspect. If you see the next, what is the ecological health implication? Okay, just we have discussed of the, it is talking in context of the role of the vultures. We have just talked about the cascade negative impact, because these vultures, they will give the they will degrade these carcasses. Ultimately, what the it will become the breeding ground for pathogen, and the other zoonotic disease outbreak would be there, that will be get eliminated. So from that perspective, it will cascade the negative impact if the vulture stop providing, or their vulture got eliminated or got extinct. Then also there is zoonotic disease outbreak. This also we have discussed, either with the pathogen, it will become the breeding ground pathogen, or the vectors like dogs, rats. So this will cause the disease outbreak, and this will cause the rabies like disease. Okay, so there is the chance of the zoonotic disease outbreak. Also, this is possibility of waterborne disease. Just we have discussed how the water will get contaminated through the runoff. Okay, so that against it will create the waterborne diseases. Also, there is economical cost associated with this article, particularly talking about the economical cost, where it says that because of the 40 million people, 40 million vulture died, so it ultimately lead to the $69 billion economical cost for the human, because the nearly more than 1 lakh people have died because of the zoonotic diseases or the pathogen borne diseases outbreak. So from that perspective, the 1 lakh people died, and directly related to the opportunity cost that lost, that is around the $69 billion. So this is the one more from ecological and economic perspective, this is one more important aspect is here. So also there are the challenges. Okay, we all know aware about the ecological role of the vultures and what kind of the economical and the health ecological benefits they provide to human as well as the ecosystem. So but after knowing this all these things, there are the certain challenges because of the enforcement issue, because this particular drug called diclofenac, that is the banned in 2006-2008, but there is the illegal use of the drug is continued. So that is again the preventing threat to the vulture population. Okay, second is the slow recovery, because the reproduction cycle of vulture is very slow. So even there will be steps taken to increase the breeding or the reduce the risk associated with their extinction. The ultimately reproduction cycle is very slow, so the recovery time they need, that is too high. So from that perspective, there is one more this is one more challenge. Again, the habitat disturbance. Because of these particular issues, the vultures, their population is particular area where their range area is there, it is declining. So ultimately is leading to their habitat disturbance. Also the public awareness and the policy priority, that is the lacking, because people are not aware about the ecological or the economical role provided by the vulture. Okay, so that is the one more issue when from the public perspective. So these are the challenges involved when it comes to the vulture population decline. So next, this article also provides some way forward. So this is very important because the UPSC they are asking this kind of question nowadays. So from that perspective, we need to see the challenges associated. So what are the challenges associated? The way forward. The way forward is need to strict regulation and enforcement. Strict regulation and enforcement of the harmful these veterinary drugs. Okay, need of the fast track identification and the ban, okay, of these new non-sterilized anti-inflammatory drugs which are harmful to vultures. Second, need to introduce the alternative drugs which promotes the vulture Sept, these non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs. Okay, so example is the meloxicam. So these kinds of drug can be introduced as alternative. Third, also there is need of conservation, breeding, and release programs. So you are aware about the vulture restaurants where it is established to give them protected feeding sites for the vultures, and also it will act as the breeding center for them. So this kind of initiative need to be taken. Next is the need of public health integration. So there is need of recognition of wildlife conservation as part of disease prevention strategy. So it's talking about the One Health approach. So where we integrate the nature as is essential part of this disease prevention strategy. So it's talking about this one also. So in public policy, we need to integrate this wildlife conservation aspect. Next is there is need of monitoring and data system. So that data system need on the vulture distribution, the human health correlates, and also the use of district level mortality data to assess the impact of the scheme, the whatever the initiatives the government is bringing. So these are the initiatives we need to introduce here. Also there is need of public awareness and the community engagement. So there is need of education camps. How this public awareness and community engagement done? Through the education camps. Also there is need of involvement of local community in carcass disposal. Okay, the whatever the drugs, these particular diclofenac, these drugs would be used in while treating the animals. So when the carcass of these animals, we need to dispose it properly, so the vulture will not feed on them, and they will not face, they will not have the kidney failure problem, and they will not die. So these aspects we need to take care of. Also we need to focus on the reporting and feeding sites. Okay, so the whatever the issues like the use of the drugs, as well as the the ecological the data is there, that need to be reported properly. Also there is need to establish feeding sites. Okay, so the vulture population will thrive, and its ecological economical role that they are providing from the edges, that should be continued. So you might got aware about this it is not only about the conservation, but it's about the protecting the human health. So for that perspective, we need to go through the One Health approach, which benefits the ecology as well as the human life. So from that perspective, this article is very important. You can use this one of the case study or example when writing the main answers. Next is about the it comes in internal GS2, international relations. So this article is talking about the why are the European nations now moving to recognize the Palestine. So if you are aware about the last few days back only, the president of the France, he also shown interest in recognizing Palestine. Also there is a wave in European Union where the many states are nations are coming in support of Palestine. They are giving recognition. So this article is talking about the why the European Union, this wave is widespread now. So we are going to see the example and what can be the possible impact of this one. So when it comes to the why this European Union recognizing the Palestine now, so first reason is the Gaza war. Okay, subsequently the Gaza war, it started in October 7, 2023, when the Hamas attacked on Israel, and the subsequent Israel's military response, which caused the humanitarian catastrophe. Okay, there are the many people, thousands of people lost their lives. There is the drought-like situation in Gaza. There is a humanitarian crisis. Starving is there. Many health-related issues are there, and these all the issue created discontent among the people of Europe and the public opinion, which is going to support this humanitarian issue. So this is the one more reason. Also, to this European state which were going for the status quo, they were maintaining status quo, that become the morally and the politically untenable. Morally because of this humanitarian catastrophe, that is become the morally challenging to maintain the status quo, and politically untenable because of the public opinion is going with this humanitarian issue. The public opinion is now going to support the Palestine cause. So from that perspective, these nations are coming forward to recognize the Palestine. Second reason is consistency gap in Europe foreign policy, because when the Russia attacked on the Ukraine, that time all the nearly European Union states, the nations came in support of the Ukraine. They provided all kinds of aid to defense equipment, from the humanitarian aid, other economical grants, everything they have provided. But when it comes to the Palestine sovereignty, they hardly shown any interest in supporting the Palestine. So there is consistency gap. That is the problem of once the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said the problem of Europe is the problem of the world, and problem of world is problem of not Europe. So this kind of mentality these European Union states have. So and through this mentality, this issue, the consistency gap emerged. So where they are supporting the Ukraine sovereignty, but they are not showing less interest when it comes to the Palestinian sovereignty, and this is led to the double standards of the European Union. And also this double standard, what it led decrease the Europeans credibility. So it started eroding the European Union's credibility in the international diplomacy. So this is the one reason is there. Next reason is about the public pressure on domestic policy, because if you see the youths, the pressure group, progressive groups in Europe, they are coming in support of the Palestine. There are the widespread protests in universities, the public places we are seeing. Also, there was one survey in the Europe called the Europe Barometer. It is done in 2023, where the 72% European peoples in Europe, they shown the keen interest that the European Union should go and uphold the international order. They should involve in the international issues and international conflict, and they should strive to uphold this international order, the water UN charters, conventions are there. So this people's opinion is there, that is also binding the European Union and all the nations to support this Palestine cause. Next reason is the symbolic shift in the global posture, because there is clear diplomatic signal. The European Union wants to give clear diplomatic signal that they are no longer passive spectator. So they are now becoming the principled actor. So they are supporting all the global issues which have the humanitarian issues, the humanitarian crisis, and the human right violation involved. So this is their one interest they are showing, that to be a principled actor. Next is the historical and political tradition. This is one more reason. If you see the already three states, that is Spain, Ireland, and Norway, these states are supported. Particularly when you speak the Norway, yesterday we have discussed about the Israel and Arab issue. That time we were discussing in 1993 there was a Oslo Accord. So where the Norway, it acted as a mediator between the Arab countries and the Israel. Okay, so from that perspective, it is obligation of Norway itself to recognize the Palestine state, so they can effectively act as a mediator. Also, when it comes to the Ireland, it is also for long period it was under the colonial rule. So they also have the seen or the experience this kind of humanitarian crisis, or the issues that atrocities done by the colonial state. So from that moral ground, they are also supporting the Palestinian cause. So this is one more reason is there. Next is a geopolitical realignment. How the geopolitical realignment is involved here? Because of the US polity drift. Previously, if you see the European Union, it used to concurrent the US policies, and whatever the Europe used to show them east side, they used to concurrent on that one. But now the European US, what is doing, it is actively supporting Israel. So without support of USA or the Donald Trump, the Israel would not dare to attack on the other violate the sovereignty of other, that to the neutral state like Qatar. So from that perspective, this also becomes important. So without getting dragged by the US policy, now the European Union states are interested in maintaining their strategic autonomy. They want to play major role in global arena. Also, they want to pursue their own interests. From that perspective, they are coming forward to recognize Palestine state. Also, there is de facto common position. Okay, because if you see, there is one kind of agreement is there. It is called common foreign and security policy. So this is the one instrument that European have, but if they want to have the common foreign or security policy, they need to have the concurrence of the all the European states. But what is currently happening? The certain state like Germany, Hungary, they are not supporting the Palestine because of the Germany. They are the background that the atrocities done against the Jew. From that, they have the moral obligation to stand with Israel. They want to portray themselves against the Jews. So from that ground, they are staying back. They are not coming forward to recognize the Palestine. But ultimately, what it will lead, the each individual state, if they started recognizing the political authority or the political independence of the Palestine, ultimately all these like-minded countries will come together and they will give the de facto, they will build the de facto the common cause or the common policy ultimately. So from that perspective, this issue will becomes very important. So this is about why what are the reason behind that the European Union is recognizing the Palestine. Now the what would be the its impact. So when it comes to its impact, first, it is the symbolic act recognizing Palestine. It might not end the war, but it will lead to the global pressure, the political pressure on Israel, particularly when the UN, United States, United Nation, these people, these states will recognize the Palestine. So the votes going in favor of the Palestine, that will increase. So it might create the global pressure on the Israel to reduce the war. Also, second, it will lead to the it will reduce the humanitarian crisis happening in the Israel. So Israel might come at a negotiation table, so they can the negotiate and there might be pause on the war. So these are the two possibility, but we cannot predict how in which way geopolitics will go. So we'll wait what happens, and that time again we'll discuss this topic. So this is about this particular article. The next article is about the Indian Mauritius. Okay, so this is the last article again, and this article is very crucial because from the perspective of international relation, that is the GS2. So now when it comes to this particular article, the president of the Mauritius, he is in the India, and they have meeting in the Varanasi. So they have come with some declaration. So there India has given special economical assistance package which cost approximately 680 or 690 million dollar. So this is the special economical package given by India to Mauritius. Second, the sectors covered. The sectors that we're going to cover under this package, these are the infrastructure. We are going to support the airport, road, port, metro building in Mauritius, also the hospital, heli services, maritime security, floating solar panels. So we are pushing the green economy in the region also. So these are the sectors covered. Also the bilateral trade. This is the one more major achievement happened, that bilateral trade between India and Mauritius. It will be in national currency, that is in Indian rupee and Mauritius rupee. So this is the one more major highlight of this particular agreement. Then there are the MOUs agreements signed on the education, energy, hydrography, space research, capacity building. So these are the aspects covered under the MOU. Also there is the strategic cooperation, because India is emphasized the Mauritius role in Indian Ocean region strategy. So now we are coming with a new policy called Mahasagar. Previously we had the Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region. So we are mostly focusing on the states or the countries in the Indian Ocean regions but now we are coming with Mahasagar, where we are focusing on the global south. So rather than providing security or moral support, humanitarian aid to the countries in Indian Ocean region, we are going beyond and we are supporting the countries in global south. So from this perspective, we are posing ourselves as a leader of global south. So this one more aspect, and this under this Mahasagar policy, the ties upgraded to enhanced strategic partnership. So this is the one more aspect of between the India and Mauritius relations. So from that perspective, the Indian Mauritius relations becomes very important from the UPSC perspective, because we have upgraded our ties to enhanced strategic partnership. So now we'll just see the what are the historical background between the Indian Mauritius relations, because when we see ethnicity of Mauritius, 70% of the Indian ethnicity belongs to Indian ethnicity. From that perspective, it is very important for the India. So first is during the colonial era, the particular date, that November 2, 1834, the first group of Indian indentured laborers that reached Mauritius, and these labor mostly were from the Bihar, Odisha, okay, West Bengal. So mostly the northern region, dominant from the Bihar. Okay, so this first batch reached to the Mauritians. And this particular date, the November 2, it is celebrated in Mauritius as a Pravasi Divas in Mauritius. And when it comes to India, we celebrate January 9 as a Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, January 9. Let me know in comment section why we celebrate January 9 as a Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Okay. So next is the when during the post-independence period, we got independence in 47. Okay. So that time we got independence, and Mauritius got the independence in 1968. So that time the India become the first among the first country to recognize Mauritius. Okay, so from that perspective, the relations, we have the historical ties between the two countries. Next, when it comes to strategic and economic engagement, it started boosting in 1990s. Okay, when Mauritius emerged as one of the largest source of FDI into India. Okay, that is because of the double taxation avoidance agreement. So when this agreement came into existence, from that time, the Mauritius became the one of the largest source of the FDI into India. In 1994, what happened? The India and Mauritius, they signed one agreement on cooperation in defense and the maritime security. So this is the from the strategic perspective, maritime started becoming important for us. In 2015, the next development came. So throughout this period, that till 1990 to 2015, Mauritius was the very crucial from the India's economic perspective because it been the largest source of FDI. In 2015, the Prime Minister of India announced the Sagar vision from the Mauritius. So that time, this Mauritius become one of the key element or the key country when it comes to the India's the global South leadership. Also, in 2016, India signed the line of credit, okay, for the major infrastructure project. Then in 2018, India extended nearly $100 million line of credit for the defense purchase. Then 2021, we have signed a comprehensive economic cooperation partnership agreement, and it was the first trade agreement with the African country. From that perspective, it has become very important because the Mauritius is the first African country with which India have this comprehensive economic cooperation and partnership agreement. Also, now we are aware about in 2025, we have upgraded our strategic tie. So enhanced strategic partnership. We have upgraded strategic partnership to the enhanced strategic partnership. So this is about brief account on the historical relations between the India and Mauritius. Now, when it comes to the importance of Mauritius for India, the importance because of the strategic, geopolitical, and economic importance. When it comes to the maritime Indian Ocean positioning, so if you see the location of the Mauritius, it is very crucial for India to expand in the West Indian Ocean, and also for the maritime domain awareness, also from the perspective of the to counter the piracy, illegal activity, illegal fishing in the Indian Ocean region. From that perspective, it is the position of the Mauritius is very important. Second is about the global South and African gateway. So because if you see the Mauritius is the first African country with which we have the economical agreement or free trade agreement. Okay, so also when it comes to the global South, we have the many initiatives, Sagar policy we have announced from the Mauritius only. From that perspective, we are putting the Mauritius, and Mauritius been the steadfast supporter of India on the all global positions. When it comes to this global South, we are positioning ourselves as a leader of the global South. Okay, so again, when it comes to African gateway, it is very crucial to connect the West African country, particularly the Francophones country. Okay, it means the country which speak the French language. Okay, so for them, the Mauritius is gateway for us. Next is the geopolitical counterbalance. How the geopolitical counterbalance? Because we have seen the Chinese influence in Africa. Also, to block India's maritime influence, it has come with a string of pearls policy. And to counter this, India is coming with a double fish hook. So particularly we are developing, this is the India, this is, we are developing the ports or developing the ports around this region, that Indian Ocean, so we can block the Chinese effort to pose setback to India's influence in the Indian Ocean region. And from this perspective, the position of Mauritius become important, because already we have in Mauritius foreign listening port. So we have increasing our military presence in the Indian Ocean region through establishing the ports or the developing ports in the Mauritius. And at the same time, we are countering the Chinese string of pearls policy. From the development cooperation, because we have development cooperation in the wider area, it comes, education comes, the infrastructure development, we are developing the port there, we are developing the metro rails, renewable energy projects. So development cooperation is deepening with Mauritius. Next is when it comes to economical and trade relations, the bilateral trade, it is increased from the $206 million in 2005-6, it is gone to the $851 million in 23-24. Also the FDI that is coming from Mauritius, it is also exceeding the $175 billion. So from that perspective, from economical perspective, Mauritius is very crucial for India. Second, when it comes to cultural ties and diaspora, 70% of Mauritius population is Indian origin. So we have the shared language, the festivals, the Indian culture, it has a strong influence. So there is the strong people to people contact. On this strong people to people contact, we can build our relations. So next is the challenges. So we have seen the strategic, geopolitical, as well as the economical importance, but these are not immune from the challenges. So the challenges, like this is dependency and depth, okay, because what we are giving it mostly in the grant or the credit line, so it might create the dependency culture in the Mauritius. So again, we have seen the particularly when it happened with the Maldives, Sri Lanka, that time there was a voices raised against the India. So that kind of one threat is there, that there might be anti-Indian sentiments among the Mauritius people. Also the implementation follow through, because we have the project delivery deficit, we promise, but when it comes to the delivery or implementation, we always lack. Even we are not able to implement project or deliver project in domestically, and when it comes to the other nation, you need to forget it only. So this is one issue is there. That's why the many countries around the India, they are moving towards China, because of the their quick delivery of project and also on the timely delivery. So this is the one risk or challenge we have. Next, come to strategic competition with the other powers. The China is the most influential when it comes to West Africa. It is heavily investing in West Africa. Also it is investing in Mauritius infrastructure. Okay, so this is the one challenge we have. Also the global power, because we have you are aware about the issue, one issue developing, where the Mauritius is claiming on the Chagos archipelago, okay, and it is traditionally claimed by the United Kingdom, and that time we are supporting the cause of the Mauritius. And also now currently the United Kingdom agreed to transfer the sovereignty of Chagos archipelago to Mauritius. So that one aspect is there, but other major powers, United Kingdom is there, France is there, also the US based Diego Garcia is very close to the Mauritius. So it is our we are indirectly coming conflict with the other great power when we want to become the influence the Indian Ocean region. So this is one more challenge we have. Also there is the environmental and local concern, because the Mauritius, it's located on coral, the atoll, and also we are building the infrastructure project. Okay, so this is also there is risk of the environmental concern. Okay, also there is the illegal fishing activities happens there. So from that perspective, this challenge is occurring. Also there is the effect of global economic shock, because the Mauritian economy, it is heavily depends on the tourism and the aid from the other nations. So if there is a global economical shocks, then it might disturb the Mauritius economy, or there might be unrest in Mauritius. So this is one more challenge when we conduct the Indian Mauritius relation that we are going to face. So this is about the challenges major challenges that we will face while conducting our relations in effective way. But ultimately it depends on how we go forward, how we engage with Mauritius. We need to focus on the people to people contact. Also there is the strategic importance of Mauritius for India. We need to focus on the developing infrastructure there, so we can build the Mauritius individual capacity, and it indirectly helps the India and India's Mahasagar policy. So this is all about today. I wanted to discuss this much article. Tomorrow I will again come with the articles that coming in the Hindu as well as Indian Express, and these are I'm going to discuss from the men's perspective. For today, thank you very much.